All right, so if we can, let's take care of one little order of business that we should have done earlier, going in a little bit of a different pattern than I expected, but we need to add another file. We have set up a Git repository. Well, every time these files are updated, or compiled, especially if we set up a GitHub repository where we're pushing the latest code to a cloud-based repository, we don't want to bring every single thing. It's just like, bringing everything you own every time you go camping. No, you just want to bring a few things. So by setting up a file that it tells it to ignore things, we can do this. And so we're going to say touch.gitignore. Okay? And then let's go to our project. We'll see it. See that gitignore? That's going to just tell, hey, Git, don't bother with these. Just leave these here. Local development, it's node module information and artifacts. And so speaking of that, actually, we're just going to start typing node modules. And you'll see those towards the end of the video when we deploy our contract, the amount of information that is coverage, okay? Cache, we're not going to bring that every time we push. Artifacts, they can stay put. Type chain. And then finally, if we, on hard hat, we have publicly known passwords and etc. But if you have a .env file, you never want to have that being pushed to somewhere where someone else can see it. So that helps with that, okay? All right, and let's go save that. So that just catches us up on that bit of business that was important, okay? Okay, now we're ready to set up our package.json. Now, package.json is very important. It's kind of saying, what does this come with? What's under the hood of this thing, okay? And so to start with, let's pull up our terminal again. We'll just clear it. Touch package.json, okay? And if we come to the project, sure enough, there it is. And so let's start coding this out. Again, my advice is first understand, then AI. This could be the only package.json you ever actually type completely, but why not understand it? Let's walk through it here, okay? So it starts with a curly brace. And the package.json, what's under the hood? Well, it has a name, doesn't it? Okay. Colon. And ours is called, or mine anyway, is called DePIN model. Notice no caps. We don't want to put any caps in the package.json. All right, and what version is this project? You could get fancy later if you need to, but I'd say this is 1.0.0. There's more to come, so we include that comma. Private is a Boolean that's going to be true. So let's just catch up with ourselves here. So the name and version kind of makes sense. If you're headed to production, you might have several versions of a project, and it's very important. For us right now, it's just 1.0.0. When we are private, it's just we're keeping this from being published to the NPM registry, okay? It's pretty standard, okay? So now we head into, okay, well, what else is under the hood? There's certain scripts that we're going to be running in order to build and test this project. And so one of them we've already set up through our tsconfig.json. We're going to compile, right? And we're using hard hat compile, okay? And so what this is saying is that, when it has the script, for instance, clean, when that script is fired up, it is going to sound the alarm for hard hat clean. Okay, this will make more sense as we go for a test. Okay. For node, hard hat node. And for local deployment of our contract, so I'm going to get this over here so you can see it. So this is all pretty important. This is referring to a file that we haven't made yet, but we're going to make a deployment script. And so when we fire the command, that's what it's going to do. Network localhost is going to be our node, and we're going to get into that in a minute. Fire up basically the equivalent of 20 wallets holding millions of dollars of ether that's staked in our Truman Show-like environment. Okay, so hit save. We're not quite done, but we're done with a good part of it. All right, so it's time to set up now our dev dependencies. Okay, so we'll put a comma here. All good. So colon, another back curlies. Now, we've referenced at Nomic Foundation, right? You remember that. And so here what we're setting up is we're saying, you know, well, what within that are we using? Well, we want to use version 3.0.9, okay? And again, you know, if this video is around in 5 years, it'll probably be a higher number. So you know, this, I think probably you understand what we're doing here. We're defining the part of the library we want. So we want at Nomic Foundation Hard Hat Toolbox as well. At least, that's what we get from that little upper arrow thing. Version 6.1.0, okay? Comma, there's more to come, okay? Now we're using Hard Hat, and we need to state a version, okay? We want at least 2.26.3. TypeScript node, a version at least 10.9.2. And then finally TypeScript at least version 5.9.2. Okay? And so no comma there because we're done with that list, but we do have more coming in our package.json. So we continue, okay, with a comma there. And let's see if there's anything to really look at there. The Nomic Foundation stuff are the Ethers plugins. It just simplifies us being able to interact with the Ethereum virtual machine. And the Hard Hat Toolbox, again, a lot of matchers and more Ethers stuff. Just a very important plugin information, okay? And the Hard Hat version itself is, of course, just the overall framework. The TS node allows us to run TypeScript files, so we're just naming that version. And the TypeScript compiler, once again, is going to be tied to going between TypeScript and JavaScript, okay? All right, so now we're going to install some dependencies. And so we are already using Open Zeppelin contracts, we know that, but we haven't yet defined, well, which batch of them? We've been working hard over here, this company, for years. Well, we want at least version 5.4.0, okay? And that's all that's on that one, so no comma there, but we will put a comma after the curly brace, and we're getting close to the end here, okay? And if you're right there with me, then congratulations, we are well on our way with our package.json, okay?